Hello and good morning. My name is Wanda Lyle, and I'm honored to serve as chair for this year's Nashville Public Library Literary Award Weekend. My friend Gail Williams and I have had the pleasure of working with the Nashville Public Library Foundation team for the past year to plan and then to pivot to our first ever virtual public lecture. It has truly been a fun time. We've learned a lot from each other and in planning this weekend's wonderful events. With that said, I'd like to welcome you to the annual Nashville Public Library Literary Award Public Lecture. I am delighted to be here with you this morning. The fabric of our community is made up of people from all walks of life, different backgrounds and perspectives to achieve something great together. I know this because while I serve as Managing Director and General Manager of UBS, where it takes multiple disciplines to achieve success for the community we serve, that's exactly what the Nashville Public Library does, providing literacy and learning for all citizens. And that is what makes me so proud in serving with Gail as this year's chair. With that, I must take a moment to thank all of our generous sponsors. Our Literary Award honoree sponsor, the Sandra Shatton Foundation. Our Gala sponsors, Pinnacle Financial Partners and Laura Ann Turner. Our public lecture sponsors, Dollar General and Carol and Robert Frist. Thank you for your commitment to the work of NPL and the mission of NPLF. And let me thank the UBS team again for serving as presenting sponsor of this year's Literary Award Weekend. As a quick update, next year we are excited to welcome Colson Whitehead, where Gail and I will serve as chairs again. Thank you for joining us this morning and for being here. We're extremely pleased that you welcomed us into your home today, so enjoy the show.
Good morning. My name is Ketch Secor, and I'm excited to welcome you to the Nashville Public Library Literary Award Weekend's public lecture. Some of you may know me from leading the group Old Crow Medicine Show, while others of you may know me as the author of the children's book, Lorraine, and yet others of you may know me from performing during various Nashville Public Library shows, like puppet shows, courtyard concerts, or the Foundation's Picnic with the Library event. In any event, I am super excited to serve as MC for this year's public lecture. This event for the past 16 years has brought literary greats into Music City to raise awareness and funds for the amazing work of the Nashville Public Library. If you're familiar with what NPL did in 2020, you know that the organization, the people, and the community all had to adjust considerably this year. In fact, because of the essential nature of our wonderful library system and staff, NPL was able to keep kids reading through limitless libraries. Library books and educational resources are included in MNPS's neighborhood bus deliveries to students and NPL's juvenile ebook use, which was increased by 120% this year. NPL launched its Summer Reading Challenge 2 months early to help students prevent out-of-school learning loss with over 8 million total minutes read. The library's digital collection was expanded by 14,000 audiobooks and ebooks, with demand increasing 60% over the last 5 months. NPL programming that was already or converted to digital platform charts more than 70,000 monthly views, with an average of 120 total video programs taking place each month on NPL Universe. It's because of things like this that allows all of us to celebrate the Nashville Public Library and makes me so happy. And it's why serving as MC was so important to me. my family, and all I come in contact with know that I am an avid supporter of NPL and the work of the Nashville Public Library Foundation, who funds many of the key and important NPL programs. This morning, we're going to hear some amazing stories that celebrate the fabric of our community. Music City is made up of so many different types of people and cultures. That's something that helps us understand each other, learn from, and grow within communities where we live. You'll hear more about this later, but this year's all-virtual celebration is focused on Nashville Public Library's commitment to providing literacy and learning to the wonderful community we serve, and kicks off a year-long community engagement celebration focusing on literacy as the great equalizer. Now, I'd like to introduce this year's public lecture sponsor, Ms. Deneen Tor with the Dollar General Literacy Foundation. Immediately after, we'll hear from Kent Oliver with the Nashville Public Library. Deneen?
Good morning. I'm Deneen Tor, the Executive Director of the Dollar General Literacy Foundation. And on behalf of the entire Dollar General family, I'm so honored and thrilled to be here with you as we kick off the Nashville Public Library Literary Award Weekend's 2020 Public Lecture. Together, we have the opportunity to see how the library makes our community shine bright, how it strengthens the offerings that we have and helps people grow and thrive through the power of literacy and education. This year, we're going to focus on bringing a whole intentional year full of work, of beautiful assets and beautiful gatherings of people who have been inspired, touched, and moved by the great work and offerings that our library system has to offer. And you know what, guys? It's not just our library, it's a nationally renowned public library with a brilliant, brilliant future ahead of it. That's because of all of you who come in every day, who walk through these doors, visit the programs that we have, and who engage so beautifully. So while I truly wish we could be together in person, and please know that we are in heart and spirit, we hope that you enjoy today's public lecture, that you join us as we celebrate this year, and we look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Thank you for being with us this morning, Deneen. We are extremely grateful for the Dollar General Literacy Foundation's support of the Nashville Public Library. We would not be one of the best libraries in the country without funding from Dollar General. I would also like to thank Carol and Bobby Frist for their sponsorship of the public lecture. Good morning to all of you. I'm Kent Oliver, Director of the Nashville Public Library. I appreciate you joining us to celebrate literacy and learning at NPL. This year, we have all experienced what is now a cliche, unprecedented times. I'm incredibly proud of my NPL staff for their flexibility and creativity in determining how to continue serving everyone in the community at a time when many need it the most. We've been eager to reopen since COVID-19 forced us to make the tough but responsible decision to close our facilities in March. All of us at NPL are amazed and heartened by the exponential engagement and growth we have seen in our readership, customer service, opportunities, and program outreach, just to highlight a few examples. I'm proud to share that because of my incredible staff and funding from the foundation, NPL has charted more than 70,000 monthly views with an average of 120 total video programs taking place each month on NPL Universe. Additionally, children are in homeschool groups using Zoom. We've taken books to daycares, and Bringing Books to Life is doing Zoom story time, and some puppet shows with daycares and preschools. The digital inclusion team has 5,000 contacts with the folks they've supported by email, text, phone, and Zoom. I could go on and on about other accomplishments, but you will hear more from others who are eager to share their stories of how NPL and NPLF have impacted their lives.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Nashville Public Library Literary Award Virtual Public Lecture. I'm John Cooper, Mayor of Nashville and Davidson County, and it's my privilege to help celebrate the innovation that Nashville Public Library uses to serve our community. Especially during this time of unprecedented challenges for Nashville, I'd also like to thank Ketch Secor, the 2020 Virtual Public Lecture MC. Now, this year's lecture looks very different than in years past. Nashville's COVID-19 response requires us to celebrate the essential work of our library from a distance, but we remain closely connected by our mutual support for Nashville Public Library and its mission to spread learning and literacy to everyone in Nashville and Davidson County. Throughout 2020, our libraries have proven that they are vital institutions as they continue to serve our most marginalized and historically underserved communities and respond to the rapidly evolving needs of our students and provide a sense of normalcy and enrichment for Nashville families. Because after all, nothing, not even a pandemic, can come between a librarian and story time. To successfully emerge as a great city on the other side of the COVID-19 crisis, we will continue to rely on the essential work of Nashville Public Library. And our libraries will always rely on your support. And I wish you good health and look forward to joining you at next year's public lecture in person. Thank you.
One of the exciting things about this year's public lecture is the focus on the local author introducing each story that you'll hear today. We feel literacy and learning can be displayed through the eyes of the author and those learning. In this case, I'm honored to also highlight that you can learn from an illustrator and the amazing images that this type of person can provide to enhance the reading experience. Now I have the distinct pleasure of introducing a woman who is very close to my heart, Higgins Bond. After this distinct pleasure, you'll hear from an author who will intro the story segment. Now, let me tell you why Miss Bond is so important to me. Y'all, Barbara Higgins Bond is a Nashville treasure. She's my favorite illustrator of children's literature anywhere in the country, and I had the very special privilege and pleasure of having her be the illustrator of my book, Lorraine, the Girl Who Sang the Storm Away. She went to Memphis College of Art on the west side of the state. She came from Little Rock, Arkansas, and she's just somebody really special. So I'm so glad that, that the library has brought her and her amazing talents to this year's production.
Hello and good morning. My name is Higgins Bond, and as Ketch just mentioned, I'm a children's book illustrator. And it's wonderful to be able to talk to you today because the person that I'm introducing found her passion from a book at a library, and it transformed her ability to expand her artistic expression. I'm constantly inspired by children's books, reading, literacy, and learning. It's a wonder that the Nashville Public Library Foundation is telling stories from the community, because the community is what inspires me in so many ways. What we hold in common, me and Shia, is that we both derive an artistic calling from books. While our career paths are slightly different, literacy and learning provide us with a common thread. And that's what life, art, and books provide, right? The more commonalities we uncover about each other, the more empathy we can experience. So it is my honor to introduce Shia Moore, a local watercolor artist who walked into a library to find herself. Let's hear from Shia and learn more about her story.
The Nashville Public Library improved my quality of life. It basically gave me a second career or new career. And it happened one day while I was visiting the library, just for like some inspiration. I was kind of in between jobs, and I was 4 years into freelancing. And I felt like I needed to do something different because I felt like maybe it was just kind of like, I don't know, I was bored with it, but I'm a creative person, so I knew that I wanted to do something different. And so the place I normally come is here, to the library. So I'm walking through the fine arts section of the library, and I'm looking for inspiration, and I'm just kind of like, okay, I went to photography, I went to, I went to the photography section, I went to the fashion section, and then I came upon the watercolor section. And it's weird, it was just like perfect timing. I turn around, I say, watercolor. I felt like I was open to the idea, and that's what I just like, okay, I'll try it. So 1 year in, and with my art career, and I got a message about the historic Germantown looking for 5 artists in Nashville, and you could apply. And so I did that, and I was one of the 5 that was selected. And that, so we paint, they chose me to paint the mural because I do portraits. So I did the founding people for Germantown, historic Germantown. So getting the library card was like winning the lottery, just because for me, being in a library, it's like little worlds within a world. So it doesn't matter where you are, whatever book, anything about books. The reading can kind of take you to different places, or anywhere that you want to go. So that's kind of how it felt to me. It's a personal place of inspiration. I like to come here when I'm kind of like picking up ideas, I want something, or anytime a new book comes out, I do get on the really long wait list as well. But it's just a place of comfort for me. That's what the library is for me.
Thank you, Shia. What an amazing story. I'm now honored to introduce author Yuyi Morales.
Hi, everybody. My name is Giuji Morales. I love making books, so I write and I illustrate children's books. I was born in Mexico, and when I was an adult and a new mother, I came to the United States. When I was here in the United States, one of the things that happened is that I felt lost. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And one day, I entered a place that changed my life. I was pushing the stroller with my son. I entered the public library. And in the public library, I learned many things. Among them, things that I love, things that I didn't know, things that I was curious about. And also I found a path. From there, I started trying to copy the picture books that I was seeing at the library. And I realized that I wanted to have my own books. And that became my path. Learning how to create the books, like the ones I saw at the public library, helped me to realize that I had stories inside me and that I could put them in books and tell them to my son and to everybody. And that's how I began making books my life and my path. I am honored to introduce Angela, Isaac, y Jacobo Paez Nichols. Having migrated from Nashville, from Colombia, and now raising a bilingual son, their stories and my stories share a lot of similarities. We came under different circumstances, and yet there is so much in common, because like all immigrants, we all experience what it's like to come to a new place, bringing with us a lot of presence, a lot of who we are, everything that we are. Libraries have played a significant role in the life of many people, including Angela and her family, and Jacobo and Isaac, as well as they have played an important role in my life. Isaac, Jacobo, and Angela, yo les deseo lo mejor con todo mi corazón. I wish you with all my heart a really, really beautiful journey of seeing your child grow, and you two being empowered by all that a public library can give you.
The library has impacted our life. It has showed us a dimension of being parents. We're new parents. It has been really, really hard. We're not supposed to do this in isolation, yet the pandemic hit hard. He was probably a month old when we started social distancing. We've been social distant for a while now. And so the library provided this community that we craved being part of, and all the different strategies that they have come up with, so we could be part of that community, feel like parents with other folks. Particularly baby story time with Miss Lisa has been an amazing opportunity for us.
Yeah, and even before Hakobo was born, we spent a little bit of time at the main library in the children's room there, and already started to kind of explore and think about the books that we wanted to show Hakobo, and imagining bringing him there. And while he hasn't been able to have some time there yet, we have been able to bring some of the books that we imagined to him through the book bundles that Miss Lisa has arranged for us, and really been specific to who we are. She asked what kind of books we wanted and has really tailored them to be multilingual, that he is growing up in a bilingual household.
When we were preparing to come for this conversation, we brought our copy of Dreamers that came with one of the bundles, and that Ms. Lisa sent us with a note that this is for you. So it was really exciting to see that this was going to be in Nashville Reads for this year. And I have to say that the first time we read it together, I cried, because this spoke to who I am. My story is different from the books. I came to the US for the first time to get my PhD. So I was single. I was not thinking about my family in any way, but I do feel the bringing two stories together, packing whatever you can fit in a suitcase or in a backpack and doing the best you can with that. So now that I have this little guy, that I want him to be very grounded to this community and also to my community in Colombia, this spoke volumes. But this is to me, right? Then we read it with him, and I think, the pictures, the drawings are so beautiful. He loves the colors. I don't know, you saw a couple of minutes ago, we took it out and he just got excited. This is one of the books that we read most often, I would say. I want to share this. This is just a short quote of the book that I think speaks a lot to who we are as a family. We're stories, we're two languages, we're lucha, we're resilience, we're hope, we're dreamers, soñadores of the world. We are stories. We're definitely two languages, and we're doing our best for him to be two languages. And I think this is only possible. We talk, with family members and so on, but these two languages come with books that the library allows us to have, to explore. We're lucha, we're resilience, now more than ever in the midst of the pandemic. We're hope, which is what we think we find in the library, with the friendliness, the welcomeness, the openness, which is something that we want him to grow up with. And we're dreamers. We want him to be a dreamer, to dream big.
We're all facing really tough financial times, and the branches are the arteries, right? Like, that central library is a heart. It sits at the heart of our city, and has things like the Civil Rights Room, has things like the Children's Room, and has all of this wonderful content, but it's very far from us. And to still be able to connect to that heart through this branch of Madison, through the Donaldson branch, through the Bellevue branch, through the Green Hills branch, we have been and have utilized all of these branches, and that from that center of the city, it pumps life through these branches, and to imagine losing them is really painful. Really painful. And both because we're so connected to them, and because of the communities that I know that they serve, and the people that I have had the chance to interact with there, and I am fearful of that, and really value not just like that heart at the center that we have utilized a lot of the main branch, but all of these other the branches that bring out that life into the rest of the city.
And that with funding the branches, we're not only funding the places and not paying for a place to be. We've seen it in the pandemic, right? We cannot come to the library, but the library has found a way to come to us. And I'm following all those different accounts, the Madison branch, you name it, I have it all. And just to see the different activities that these folks are coming up with to reach out to us now that we cannot come to them. So that's why we think, it keeps pumping, even when physically coming to the library is not an option. And that's quite impressive.
Good morning. My name is Jerry Johnson. As South Central Market Head at UBS and a board member of the Nashville Public Library Foundation, I am honored to be here with you for this year's Nashville Public Library Literary Award Virtual Public Lecture. While we cannot see each other in person, celebrating virtually this year is the safest choice. But because of this new format, I'm very excited about the impactful library stories we will experience this morning. Before I introduce the next featured story, I'd like to share my passion for Nashville Public Library and how pleased UBS is to support its important work. I'm very proud of our library and for all it's doing for this great community, as I'm sure you are. One of my favorite NPL programs is Studio NPL. Before March of this year, many of these were in person. But there have been digital options like Studio NPL's Playlist, which was developed to assist students learning remotely. This program is now up to 32 original episodes and has over 1,000 views. Additionally, Studio NPL recently embarked on its first kit lending program, checking out robot kits to MNPS teachers and building 14 additional STEM kits for circulation. It's because of innovative components, like ones I just mentioned, that it's truly an honor and beyond exciting to introduce Carly Freeman, a Studio NPL alumnus. Carly is currently a senior at Fordham University in New York City. She was homeschooled in Nashville and was introduced to STEAM technologies at Studio NPL, starting with us in 2016. It was here that she discovered her love of writing could be translated into storytelling on screen. I don't want to give too much away, but Studio NPL opened her mind to studying film and created her future path to intern at the studio and then go on to major in film and TV at Fordham. This is so inspiring and gives me goosebumps to think of the impact that the library has on the lives of youth in our community. Thank you again for joining us today. Let's hear now from Carly.
Hi, I am Carly Freeman. I am a senior studying film and television at Fordham University in New York City. I've been going to the Nashville Library for my entire life. I remember in elementary school, my mom would take me to these homeschool workshops, and once a week we'd go to the library and we would learn about science, and it was a wonderful way both to learn and to make new friends. When I was 16, I started going downtown to Studio NPL. I would take the bus down to the main library and I would go to the film production workshops or the audio production workshops. At Studio NPL, I got to use camera equipment, lighting equipment, green screens, actual audio recording booths, things that I never would have had access to if it hadn't been for the library. At the library was when I really realized that my passion for storytelling translated to a passion for filmmaking. And thanks to Rebecca at Studio NPL, I started going to all of these film workshops and I started to learn film editing, camera work, all sorts of things that I actually use today as a film major. Studio NPL really set me up for the career training and the technical training that I needed to be able to succeed in college and internships and, once I graduate, hopefully in my future career as well. I'll always be grateful to the library for opening all sorts of doors that I didn't even know existed and for allowing me to be where I am today.
Hi, I'm Andrew Maraniss, an author here in Nashville, and I am honored to be with you this morning. My passion is writing nonfiction stories about the triumphs of people who have been overlooked, those who defy the odds with the support of others to realize their dreams. You're getting ready to hear such a story from our next presenter, Sarah Bright. Sarah will be sharing how the library's digital inclusion program empowered her with the skills, resources, and support to overcome significant health and learning obstacles in order to pursue her dream of becoming a registered nurse. Sarah is a perfect example of the transformational power of knowledge and literacy at every stage of life, and a beautiful reminder of the magic of lifelong learning. Please join me in welcoming Sarah Bright to our celebration.
Over 30 years, I have worked with different patients. And in that profession, you deal with a lot of hostile patients. And I got hurt. And I wasn't able to lift or do direct patient care with the patient that I was dealing with on the psych unit or the medical unit. So I went back to school, went back to community colleges at first. 2 community colleges to kind of, get the reading back up, my understanding of what I was doing, because I had a stroke back then, and I couldn't do exactly what I was doing, and I wanted to better myself. So what I had to do was to learn how to read better, how to learn how to work the computer, didn't know how to cut it on, went to computer classes, went to OIC for about 6 months, learned how to listen better, how to spell better, how to do a lot of things better in the career I had. With the library, I'm the one that had to set up, like the computers. After they come in, we have 10 students, 10 participants that sit at the table. I had to help them, learn how to turn it on, how to learn the keyboard, do a lot of things that they didn't know how to do at first. So that gave me an opportunity to learn how to do it better myself. I talked to a lot of I talked to Danny, which was my teacher, and he taught me a lot of good things to do, how to send emails, how to type better, how to type efficient, to spell better, a better motivation in doing it. And he knew I was like to learn a lot of educational stuff, a lot of reading, a lot of motivation to keep myself up to standards with what was going on now, because I help my grandkids read and write and, do math and all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to help them a lot better in their schooling. I have been to several community colleges, graduated for those, but that's not enough for me. I want to increase my knowledge. I'm into growing the things that's now, the new things that's coming about now, the emails, the laptops, and different. I want to know that. I want to be a teacher one day, because the disability that I have is not going to stop me from what I'm trying to do. So therefore, I have to increase my knowledge. And increasing knowledge, it grows power. When I sit down to a computer now, I can do spreadsheets, I can do Excel, I can do, oh my God, Word. You name it, I can do it with no hesitation, none whatsoever. At first, I'm low-level reading. Now it has progressed. I challenged myself a lot. I hope to become a registered nurse through this program. To me, it will be my life dream.
Good morning. My name is Jamie Sumner, author of the middle grade novels Roll With It and Tune It Out. I'm excited to introduce our next story from Laura Calverley, the school librarian at Sylvan Park Elementary. Laura will be sharing how NPL's Limitless Libraries program provides all students in Nashville Public Schools with unlimited access to books that reflect the diversity of our community. As a mother with a son who has CP and an author who writes and speaks about the importance of including disability in literature, I, like Laura, recognize how critically important it is to make books about diversity accessible to as many children and families as possible, because all kids deserve to see themselves in the books they read. Please join me in welcoming Laura Calverley to our celebration.
I am a librarian at Sylvan Park Elementary School, which is a public school here in Nashville. And the Limitless Libraries program has completely changed what I can do. My students make use of Limitless Libraries all the time, whether it's using school delivery to get books for independent reading, and just get access to all these wonderful, wonderful reading materials, or whether it's the collection development, they help us out. They bring us new books, they bring us diverse books, they bring us what's popular, what's new, what's high quality, and they get it into our schools so that our students and teachers have access. I've never worked in a school system where we've had this direct connection between the school and the public library, and it just makes so much sense. One thing it does, well, it does lots of things to impact my job as a librarian. One thing they do is they really support our school library collections. They provide an extra budget of books that they get into the libraries, getting those books directly into the hands of our kids. Because I know that my students have Limitless Libraries school delivery, I know that they can get more materials, and I know that they can kind of go on their reading journeys, and I can help them. Sometimes I get students that will read through the library very quickly. They'll read all the materials that they're interested in, and they need more. Maybe they have a really specific interest, and Limitless Libraries gives them so much more access than we could ever give them in one school building. And that's really special and makes my job really effective. I had this student, I knew him from kindergarten on, but when he was in second grade, he was a rather grumpy student. He would come into my library daily. So he would come, I don't know if his teacher was sending him to me just to give him a break or whatever, but he would come into the library and he would walk around and he would just sort of scowl at the shelves, and he didn't find the book that he wanted. He had read everything in that library that he was interested in. And we'd have these long conversations where he'd come in and I'd be like, how about a book about dragons? How about this adventure book? How about this really cool series that everybody's into, And he'd look at them and he'd be like, oh, I already read this, or nah, and he knew what he wanted to read, and he knew that he had already read what he wanted from our collection. And he would come in daily because he was interested in books. And then when that child came back as a third grader, it was so exciting to tell him that, hey, guess what? Now you can check out not just the books from in here, but the books from any public library in Nashville. And I remember sitting down with him and showing him on the computer and sort of showing him how to search the catalog, how to find the books he was interested in. Suddenly he had so much control over his reading materials, and he had so much more access. And he just could come in, he could do his own thing, and he could find books. And that kid ordered books every day and was reading like crazy. So it was a wonderful experience to see him have that opportunity and to be able to give that to him. So one of my favorite parts of my job is that when the students start third grade at Sylvan Park, I get to teach them in their library orientation how to access school delivery through Limitless Libraries. And so I sit them down in the room, we all get on our computers, and we learn how to type in our, our library card numbers, we learn what a PIN number is. And as I'm showing the students how they get to do this and explaining how the school delivery system works, their eyes just light up because they suddenly see how much access they have to all these materials. And there's always a student that is raising their hand and being like, but Missy, do we really get all these books? Because they're used to just being restricted to the one. I mean, we do pretty well in the school library, but just being able to give them more is really exciting. And for some readers, it makes all the difference in turning them into lifelong readers who really catch that reading bug and go on to become readers for life.
We love Limitless Libraries!
My name is Susan Dyer, and I was the first full-time executive director for the Nashville Public Library Foundation. I began in January of 2000, and it felt like a very magic time. The story of the opening day of the Nashville Public Downtown Library, it was on the morning of June the 9th, 2001. And there was an air, again, of such magic. and excitement. I came to work that morning knowing that it was going to be an exhilarating day, that it had so much planning behind it, years of planning by people who had had a vision. So on that day, I decided, Susan, you need to go stand at the front doors and just watch all this unfold. We had an originally composed fanfare for trumpeteers who were on the Church Street balcony, who announced to the crowd of visitors who were lining up Capitol Boulevard, announcing and welcoming them into the library. And at the appointed time, I stood on one side of those wonderful bronze doors that open to Church Street. I opened my side, and another library employee opened their side. And what I saw was, it brought me to tears. It was this parade of people, and led by then Mayor Bill Purcell and Governor Philip Bredesen. And it was a parade of people. And they were so excited to be able to walk through the doors of this long anticipated library. And you know what? They weren't carrying baseballs or footballs or basketballs, all of which are wonderful. They weren't carrying a ticket to a musical event, all of which is wonderful. They were carrying books. They were carrying books into this library. On that day, they took ownership of this library and made it their own. And that dream, to be just a small part of that, and to see the people, they kept coming. They were all carrying books. People who were elderly in wheelchairs, babies, toddlers in strollers, people of all colors, all races. You know, they were all there. And they each were so proud of their book. And when I think about it today, it still brings me to tears, because it was a time that this community came together to celebrate this beautiful library, this space, what they knew was going to be inside, which was a place to learn, a place to see pictures, to travel to different worlds, to see a puppet show, to see what the latest bestseller was, and they couldn't wait to get here. And that is a moment in my life that I will forever remember and be so grateful for. And I could get lost in there forever. It was just amazing. And then I would come upstairs and I would see children in the children's area, and how excited they were to see the little mouse hole, or how captivated they were by the puppets in the puppet theater. It was just, or go upstairs and I would see people using our computers, which were a big deal 20 years ago. Many people in our city did not have access to computers, so that was a big deal. It just made me feel all over again that this library, our library, it didn't belong just to me or to the director or to the Library Foundation Board. It belonged to everybody who lived in this city, everyone who carried a library card. And that brought me such joy every day as I came to work.
an honor to introduce the work of Nashville Public Library's Special Collections Division, specifically the Civil Rights and a Civil Society program, which is an extension of the Civil Rights Room. The resources of this program are vitally important and continue the story of Nashville's role as a leader in the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s, as well as today. The Civil Rights Room and programming is intended to be a safe space for difficult conversations about race and injustice, particularly for patrons, community members, and those charged with the safety and welfare of the public. Now, let's hear from the Civil Rights and a Civil Society program.
People began to gather, and we began to march, and students came out from the lunchrooms, and they came out from being on the campus grounds, and they joined, and they came out of buildings and dormitories. We filled Jefferson Avenue. It's a long, long way down Jefferson. After a while, there was a certain bit of singing, and as we came closer to town, it was merely the silence of the feet.
There are 10 rules of nonviolent protest which were written in Nashville, Tennessee during the Civil Rights Movement. Number 9 states, do not leave your seat until your leader has given you permission. Imagine holding on to a counter with your bare fingertips as someone is pulling your coat and your body backwards in order to force you from your seat and force you from your position of protest. Imagine also the partner who has sat beside you in protest is now pulled to the floor and is being beaten and stomped with fists and feet. And your understanding of nonviolent protest states that you do not help him, but you wait for the direction of your leader. Civil rights and civil society is a presentation of history, but it's more than a presentation. It's an engagement and conversation. Many people wonder how uncomfortable will these conversations feel, and for sure they're not the most pleasant conversations to have, but neither is the topic of racism or the topic of social injustice. What we do believe, though, is that our ability to have conversations about the things that scare us, and the things that make us even look at ourselves and our families and our communities differently, are worthy. And that once you enjoy the facilitation of these conversations, you'll see that we're even able to use comedy, use levity, use love and compassion, and wrap some of those topics and themes around history in ways that allow us to confront history and to look forward into the future in a way that doesn't scare us, but motivates us.
Everybody has to do their part to be better. And there can't be just one person just doing everything. There has to be everybody working as a whole to be better.
Generations that will be coming up, they should know the civil rights movement of 1960s.
One of the gifts of the room is that it places Nashville in a global timeline. So we are able to look at what was happening internationally in 1957, what was happening around the world in 1960, and how did Nashville play a part in understanding international realities surrounding social justice. So that suddenly you have this southern city connected to the realities of what was taking place in East LA, what was taking place in Cambodia, what was taking place in Russia, and that we've become a part of a human story about what is this human quest for liberation, and who's struggling to fight for it, who's watching it from the sidelines, and who's trying to make a decision about how to become more personally responsible and active.
Civil rights and civil society to me means our meaning as humanity on this planet. It is what we stand for as a race, the meaning we have as a whole under the eyes of God.
We know the importance of a safe conversation, and our hope is that they do go home and begin to look at themselves in ways that are gently introspective, that they begin to look at their neighbors differently. They begin to look at everyone in their community differently, and maybe even use the word community differently, and start to wonder, what is it about this person that is worthy of my attention beyond what my eye tells me? So I see brown skin, or I see long dark hair, or I hear an accent. But what beyond what my eyes and ears might tell me is worthy of my attention, and what might I actually connect with? Perhaps this could be a person that starts out as a stranger, but becomes a friend.
I belong to this country, and we shouldn't give anyone a chance to divide us. So this is my point.
And as history continues to repeat itself, we ask ourselves, how might we handle social injustice today?
Doors of opportunity are opening to each of you that were not open to your mothers and to your fathers. And the great challenge facing you is to be ready to enter these doors as they open.
Hello and good morning. I'm Councilmember Nancy Van Rees, representing the 8th District of the Metropolitan Nashville-Davidson County and the home of the beautiful Madison branch of the NPL. I hold one other role that is important to my being here today. I also chair the Metro Council Parks, Libraries, and Arts Committee. I had a special opportunity to learn more about our next story feature as Nashville Public Library was completing the magnificent Votes for Women exhibit that you see here behind me today. If you have not yet watched the YouTube video that launched during the 100th anniversary of the suffrage movement, please go watch it. As part of the Mayor's Council on Women, I had a chance to organize a reading and presentation of a resolution long overdue to recognize Tennessee African American suffragettes in February as part of Black History Month. The Women's Caucus of the Metro Council had a preview of the Votes for Women exhibit with co-founder Margaret Bem. The opportunity was there to discuss the amazing work of Elaine Weiss, author of The Women's Hour. Her writing and work is enlightening, poignant, and an important look at our country's struggle to pass the 19th Amendment. After reading this, or listening to it like I did, it's no wonder that the last line of her published bio says, "And she votes in every election." She inspires, motivates, and challenges us not to forget our past, lest we repeat it, and ensures that one of our greatest political battles in American history is honored for the accomplishment, legacy, and impact that it has on our country. In a year where NPL is celebrating literacy and learning, I can think of no better person than that of Elaine Weiss to connect us a key part of Nashville's fabric, its struggle to stand up for the voting rights of its citizens, all of its citizens. Thank you for attending this morning. Because your use of Nashville Public Library, we are able to enjoy exhibits and programming that continue such important work and engage with our vibrant and growing and diverse community. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Elaine Weiss. I'm the author of The Woman's Hour, The Great Fight to Win the Vote, which takes place in Nashville in the summer of 1920. I am trained as a journalist and spent much of my career as a journalist, but in the last decade or so, I've been writing books of narrative history. My book takes place in Nashville in 1920. And Nashville is the center of this national and historic story. So the library was the first place I needed to go when I began my research. When I made my first research trip to Nashville to begin the work on my book, I knew I had a few places I had to go. And the downtown main library was one of the first. And walking in was quite an experience. It was one of the most beautiful libraries I'd ever seen, and both a sense of space and majesty, and yet a welcoming environment. It was so filled with light, and that beautiful central staircase. I was really enchanted by it. And I went up to the second floor to begin work in the Nashville room. And again, that's a treasure trove for anyone trying to understand Nashville's history and its evolution and its politics. And I found books there that really could explain to me where Nashville was in the summer of 1920, what were the issues that were paramount, what kind of political atmosphere my story was going to unfold within this time frame. And so the library and the staff at the Nashville room was so important, and they were so helpful and welcoming. The Votes for Women room, which has just been dedicated, and I can't wait to see in person, was an idea of 3 remarkable Nashville women. And it's been one of the great thrills of the publication of my book to get to know them. And Jeannie Nelson, Margaret Bem, and Julie Mosley had the idea that they wanted to tell the story I tell in the book for new generations of Tennesseans to understand how important their state was in this crucial battle. Race is an important part of this story, and it's an important part of the story both from the view of the suffragists, Black and white, in Tennessee, who are working so hard to finally bring ratification, convince the men of Tennessee. Remember, the legislature is all white men, and they have to convince them to ratify this 19th Amendment, which will constitutionally, legally give the right to vote to all women, Black and white. And so working with my 3 friends who I've grown very close to, and then working within the library family to create this very special manifestation of history. It really is a space that comes out of an historical moment in the city's life. It, 100 years later, retells that story for a modern audience. And so it's been one of the great thrills of the life of my book, to be able to be involved in this new and exciting interpretation.
Thank you, Elaine. I see why the Votes for Women exhibit is something on my list to see now. What an amazing morning, full of reasons to continue supporting the Nashville Public Library. It's wonderful to hear how so many people have continued to utilize and engage with NPL for the past year. It's been a pleasure serving as this year's public lecture MC, and I'm blown away by the wonderful engagement and interest and support that the team at the Nashville Public Library Foundation has provided me. I believe it is my calling to highlight the amazing work of our great public library system, and I take it as a great privilege to be here with you today. I'm now honored to turn things over to Ms. Shawn Bacher, president of the Nashville Public Library Foundation, who'll close us out. Shawn?
What a treat it has been to have Ketch with us this morning. Thank you, Ketch, for sharing your talents and passion for the Nashville Public Library. And what a privilege to spend the morning hearing the incredible stories of those in our community whose lives have been transformed and shaped by the Nashville Public Library. Thank you to each of you, our authors, artists, and Councilwoman Maraniss, for sharing your stories. You each showed us why we celebrate Nashville's greatest civic institution, our beloved library. Thank you to the event co-chairs, Gail Williams and Wanda Lyle. They did not sign on to be a chair of a virtual event. However, I could not be more grateful to have these 2 women help guide the vision for what this event has become. Last but not least, thank you for being here with us this morning and for supporting your library. Those of you who pay taxes in Davidson County contribute to the public funds that cover the cost of the library's operations and maintenance. The transformative programs you heard about in the stories this morning are made possible through your generous private support from sponsors, partners, and community members like you. If you are able to make a gift this morning to continue the life-changing work of the library, we would greatly appreciate it. you can give online at nplf.org. This is the beginning of a year-long celebration of literacy as the great equalizer. Follow the Nashville Public Library and the Nashville Public Library Foundation on Facebook to learn about events that will take place throughout the year. It will all culminate with the opportunity to honor two-time Pulitzer Prize-winning author Colson Whitehead as our Literary Award honoree for 2021. Now, Colson Whitehead.
People of Nashville, Colson Whitehead here. I thought we were gonna hang out this fall, but looks like fate had other plans, which will make next year's meeting that much more special. We'll get together and have our proper hootenanny, which is a New York term for a good time. So in the meantime, take care of each other, take care of yourselves, wear your masks, and when we hang out next year, we'll celebrate being on the other side. Take care, folks.
Thank you for the opportunity to serve as MC at this year's Nashville Public Library Literary Award Weekend's Public Lecture. Public Lecture is a great opportunity to hear from the voice of the community, and we've done exactly that today. Hosting this event has been an honor, and I look forward to seeing or meeting many of you in person, hopefully, next year. Have a great morning.
So my favorite memory of the Nashville Public Library is actually as a professional writer. I have been to the Southern Festival of Books every year as a presenter and then also as a shopper to listen to the different speakers and then buy the books. And it has been such a welcoming space for those of us who write the books, but also all of the people that come to see the different events and listen to the panels. And it's a wonderful time downtown where the library opens its doors, and it really celebrates the love of reading in a way that you don't get to as a grown-up very often.
So one of my favorite memories of being in the library was when I was very little. And I was a little bit shy when I was really young. And I had this one librarian who came up to me, and she just took me in, and she was like, you know what? Here, let's come explore together. I think you would love this book. And the very first book that she gave me was actually A Little House on the Prairie, the first book in this series. And then we started reaching to each other. Like she would bring me these books, and I read the whole series in record time. And she was the one who got me to really love going to the library, made it feel like a magical place for me where I belonged, where I could connect, where I could learn, and where I could just be me and grow and thrive. And I love every second of being in the library since.
My favorite memory of being in the library comes from two different perspectives. As a little kid, I was one of those ones trying to figure out the Dewey Decimal System, you know, with the long drawers full of little index cards, and then just giving it up and asking a librarian for help. Actually ending up in the media room looking at magazines instead, probably. But as a grown-up, the library has become an art gallery to me. It's become a place where I like to come and look at and learn from the lectures, the different exhibits.
I was Evelyn, and I went to the library puppet show, and I really liked it when the rabbit came around, and the show gave me the idea to make my own puppets. How I made it is just pipe cleaners and tape and popsicle sticks and string, and I can just pull on these and it can move you can kind of move it like this.
Things never change. What's so amazing is that books are one of the many offerings available at NPL. Every spring, I'm able to get my spring flower seeds through the NPL Seed Exchange program that's funded by NPLF.
I was just going to say that I like how the Summer Reading Challenge gave me something to do, and it was and it challenged me. Like I was actually reading.
Wow. Anyway, the Nashville Public Library is awesome, and we're so happy that you are a resource in our community.
I always have a special memory of those albums of Broadway musicals that we got at the Nashville Public Library downtown back in the 60s.
NPO rocks!